Chapter 26: Progress and its Discontents. Post-Impressionism, Symbolism, and Art Nouveau, 1880 to 1905. We're going to chop this chapter up into 3 parts. This will be the first one, covering Post-Impressionism. So the time period we're talking about, this is the turn of the century. This is La Belle Époque, or the Beautiful Era, or La Fin du Siècle, end of the century. There's a lot happening in the world. We have a new industrial revolution. The steam engine has been improved. We have electricity, telephone, internal combustion engines, which means we have automobiles, submarines, airplanes, moving pictures, all sorts of machines. So the amount of innovation that's happening is unprecedented. 1901 is when Marconi sent the first wireless signal across the Atlantic. We also have the women's movement launched in the 1870s. Women are organized, and they're demanding political, economic, educational, and social equality. But on the other side of the coin, because we have all of these innovations, that means that we are having this new industrial revolution. We have a surge of people moving to the cities in order to work in factories. What this is doing is this is causing a lot of poverty, a lot of really horrible conditions. People are working in these factories in just the worst conditions for 12, 14 hours a day for little wages. So we're going to see how that's also going to affect things. Post-Impressionism. Post-Impressionism refers to the avant-garde style of art from the 1880s and 1890s. It is beyond Impressionism, hence the Post-Impressionist. They are not seeking the same things that Impressionists were, obviously. They're also rejecting realism, and so they're very anti-bourgeois, very anti-academic, and they're really trying to strike out on their own pathway. So let's start with Paul Cézanne. This is Mont Sainte-Victoire. Now you'll notice that, like Impressionism, it is a very kind of two-dimensional space, with some three-dimensionality kind of thrown in here or there. So it is kind of a flattened. And these swatches of colors that he uses in his brush strokes are really kind of also keeping it flat. He does several paintings of Mont Sainte-Victoire. This is a still life piece that he does, still life with apples in a bowl. And you notice how flat this is and how unrealistic. We've got this towel or linen here, lots of very sharp folds, but the table seems a bit off, especially when combined with the towel and the compote here. As I said, we're going to see a lot of Mont Sainte-Victoire. This is Mont Sainte-Victoire seen from the Bibimus Quarry. So you notice that we have the same theme here, but it's even more abstracted and flat than the first one. So we have the shape of the mountain. We have kind of the shapes of the trees and the landscape, but we don't really have a lot of detail. We definitely don't have a sense of really depth or how far away he is. Mont Sainte-Victoire appeared in 60 different paintings and watercolors. George Seurat, A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jatte. So Seurat is really interested in color theory, and he develops a new technique he calls chromoluminarianism. Chromoluminarianism. Now, today, we probably call it pointillism, or some even call it divisionism. He came from a bourgeois family. He trained at the École des Beaux-Arts. However, he also died very young. He died at the age of 32 from meningitis. At the time, when he passed away, he had a wife and a 1-year-old son. This painting was included in the last Impressionist exhibit in 1886. So we have some middle-class people taking an enjoyable Sunday afternoon, enjoying the weather, something we'd love to do right now. We've got the woman over here that she's walking this capuchin monkey. Now, she is actually most likely a prostitute based on her outfit that we see her in. We also have different classes, and again, you can see we have kind of that boatman style of hat and outfit versus the more upper crust gentleman here with the top hat and cane. So we are seeing a variety of people and classes mixing on this beautiful day. We are seeing different types of animals, several different kinds of dogs here. You also notice that the people are very flat. We see them in either front or in profile. It almost looks like they're that old Egyptian style, very straight-backed, with the arms to the side, and they look very stiff in this piece. This took him 2 years to paint. It is 6 foot by 10 foot. And he didn't just start painting it, he actually did 38 sketches and 23 drawings before starting this. The other thing I want to point out is the frame. So it's not something odd with this picture. This is the frame that he painted. And yes, he painted it to look like this. So we've got the frame that he's painted again in that chromoluminarianism style. Pierre Puvet de Chavannes, The Sacred Grove, Beloved of the Arts and Muses. So this is kind of this idyllic, mythological, or possibly even biblical past. Everything is serene, bountiful, there's no problems here. This is another piece by Georges Seurat, La Charoute. He started out by painting a thin layer of partially mixed color and then layering on short strokes of related hues for a top layer of equally sized dots of primary and binary color. Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, the Gouloul. Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, he had a very difficult life in some respects. He had a disease that caused both of his legs to break when he was 13, 14 years old. And so he only grew to be 5'1". This disease was possibly caused by inbreeding. His parents were cousins. He also died of alcoholism at the age of 36. But in that short amount of time, he created a huge amount of work. He created 737 canvases, 275 watercolors, 363 prints, 5,084 drawings. So that is a lot of work in a very short amount of time. This is a lithographic poster, as you can see. This is for the Moulin Rouge in Montemar. It's a cabaret club. And so we've got a Moulin Rouge dancer surrounded by audience. The audience is fully in shadow, as we can see there. And then we have the dancer, La Gouloul, or the glutton. That is Louise Weber. She created the can-can, or many people think she did. She was nicknamed the glutton because she was known for guzzling the cabaret dancers' drinks while dancing. And now we have the figure here in the front, and that is Valentin Le Dessous, or the Boneless, who was known for his idiosyncratic dancing. So we have these two very well-known dancers of the time. This is also when we see things like typeface coming into account. We haven't really talked about graphic design or typeface or any fonts or any of that before, but all of a sudden we start seeing the importance of that and how that is integrated into these posters. Here's one of his paintings at the Moulin Rouge. Now, many people think that this painting has to do with absinthe. That's an alcoholic drink that was very popular during this time. It has partly to do with the eerie color of this woman's face, this kind of bluish green color. Absinthe tends to be also known as the green fairy. We also have a self-portrait of Lautrec. Here he is, painting himself in the piece there. Now we have Vincent van Gogh, the Potato Eaters. Now, this is probably not the kind of style that you're used to seeing for Van Gogh. He started painting in his late 20s. His brother Theo supported him. He ended up doing 37 self-portraits. Those are probably what you're most familiar with. And he ended up dying at the age of 37 from a gunshot. Now, whether the gunshot wound was self-inflicted or not is still up for debate. So in this one, he's showing a peasant class family. This is one of the underclasses. They're doing manual labor, and they have earned this food, which is not much. It is just potatoes, but they're sitting around as a family and happy to eat it. So it's really showing a lot of compassion for these people and respect. You will notice that he's already has the very thickly painted surface even at this time. Night Cafe. So Van Gogh ended up moving to Arles. He really wanted to create an artist commune there. Didn't quite work, partly because of his personality, kind of had a prickly personality, and so some of the artists that he did invite ended up leaving. But now we see his color choices that we're more used to seeing, these very kind of shocking colors. We also see the halos that we see around a lot of the light sources in his work. Now, some people say that actually has to do with possibly a eye disease that he had, that he actually saw these halos around light, and that's why he painted them. Obviously, we don't know, but that's a very good explanation. So we have these kind of shocking colors. This color of kind of this greenish blue is this shocking color, especially when paired with the reds and the oranges. So we've got these colors that are kind of a little shocking to the senses, harsh. And then, of course, his most well-known piece, Starry Night. And again, we have the halos around the moon and the stars. Now, he painted this one while he was staying at an asylum at the village of Saint Remy. So we have this very utopian, peaceful village. So he is at the asylum up on the hill, and he's looking down into the peaceful village. We really have a sense with a lot of Van Gogh's work of movement, of action. So even though this one is a very peaceful piece, we have the sense of movement. It has to do with these short, choppy brushstrokes in these different colors. And so we have the sense of movement. We even have a sense of movement in the trees because of kind of the curving nature. We have the sense that maybe some wind is going through these trees. Here is a portrait he did of Pierre Tanguy. Pierre was a paint supplier, as well as a very well-known socialist at the time, and he painted him in front of a whole wall of these Japanese ukiyo prints that we see there. Van Gogh was very influenced by and fascinated with these woodblock prints coming out of Japan, their kind of flat style. And of course, you have to have his self-portraits. So these are 3 different self-portraits. Of course, the last one is after he cut off his ear. And again, there is controversy over, did he cut off his whole ear or just a small part, and why? And there are lots of theories out there on both. Paul Gauguin. Vision after the sermon, Jacob wrestling with the angel. So he started a movement called symbolism or syntheticism to kind of find this world that is more simple, more back to nature, and it's going to take him a lot of different places. So Gauguin actually started out as a stockbroker who collected Impressionist paintings. Then he decided to start painting in the 1870s, but then he lost his job in 1882 and started painting full-time. He ended up participating in the last 4 Impressionist exhibits from 1881 to 1886. But in 1886, he decided to leave Paris and go try to find a more simpler life. So he ended up in this rural community in Brittany called Pont-Aven. That's where this one was painted. By 1887, he moved to the Caribbean island of Martinique. Next year, he went back to Pont-Aven and painted with Emile Bearden and some other painters. And he's really working on this syntheticism that he is trying to create or innovate. The idea of that is, again, a simpler, more childlike look at the world. Also has to do with some utopian ideals as well. So in this one we have these Breton women, and we know this by their headdress and their dress. And they have just heard a sermon about Jacob wrestling the angel, and they come outside and they see a cow, and all of a sudden they think that cow is Jacob wrestling with the angel. So we have a cow here. So the idea is there's another cow here, but instead of a cow, they see what was just spoken about in the sermon. Again, we have a very kind of flat, two-dimensional piece here. Have some issues with the perspective and depth, as you can see. In 1891, Gauguin left for the French colony of Tahiti in the South Pacific. And so he actually ends up doing most of his most well-known works there. However, he does abandon his wife and children during this time to go to Tahiti, and there are some not so savory stories about him and some of the very young girls in Tahiti. So this is depicting kind of a Garden of Eden. So we've got fruit. We have this woman here plucking a piece of fruit. So of course you have the illusion of maybe an Eve figure here. Also we have the different stages of womanhood. We have the old woman over here in the corner. We have a child, even a baby over here, and then we have several in the middle age of life. The old woman over here, the position and everything that she is in is very much like a Peruvian mummy that he saw in a Parisian ethnological museum earlier. We have these kind of references. We also have this Javanese Buddha figure here. So we have a lot of references to the culture and the civilization.